Ormond here with your astrology forecast for the week of February 24th, 2020. As I see it, we have two themes going on this week, two major themes anyway. The first is that we're moving from the more collective signs, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, into the more personal signs, Aries and Taurus, and then Gemini. And so there's a bit of a shift in terms of content of what's going on from the collective to the personal. Now, of course, we still have Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn. We have Ceres in Aquarius. We have the Sun and Mercury and Neptune in Pisces. So there's still our anchor. There's still the anchor of what's happening. But the moon will eventually move. I shouldn't say eventually. I should say later on Tuesday, we'll move into Aries and then into Taurus, and then it will move into Gemini. And so the content shifts a little bit from the collective to the personal. As I'm sure you're aware, I frequently remind you on this page, the collective and the personal are really two sides of the same coin. You know, you are sort of the inside of the collective, and the collective is the outside of you. What happens in the collective matters a lot. Coronavirus, if you need a really graphic and somewhat dour example, what happens in the collective matters to you, and the way the threat to health, the threat to economy, the threat to politics, and so on. You see all of this stuff reverberating into your own life, and you're aware of it. It's a very dramatic example, but it's not a bad one to bring home the point that we are the collective. And so we'll see this, of course, in what's going on in terms of politics, which has been very, very charged in everywhere, and we'll continue to see it in terms of some of the social things that are going on. However, we start to move into the personal signs, and we start to think, okay, well, what am I doing for me? What matters here for me? What can I do? And that's the shift that happens right around midweek. So from midweek forward, we're a little bit more in the realm of the personal. On the other hand, the second thing is a more formative thing. And as I said last week, we are in this spot since about February 14th, 15th, where we have all of the planets between Capricorn and Taurus tightly packed into a wedge, and now tightly packed into less than a third of the zodiac for most of this week. And that has been a real crucible, a real power pushing in. One astrologer said, it's pressure that makes a diamond, and that's true. But it depends. It depends what it is that you're pushing in on. If you're pushing in on coal, you do get a diamond out of it. If you're pushing in on gunpowder, you get a different sort of reaction to it. And we've seen explosions happen as the pressure builds too much. We've seen explosions push out in different places. What we've got, though, we've had the new moon in Pisces. We're coming out of the new moon in Pisces. The moon is waxing. It's always an expansive, active time. Again, this is, you feel it especially from Tuesday or Wednesday onwards. I would say midweek onwards. You feel that expansion as the moon moves away from the new moon. And then, and towards the first quarter moon, which is on Monday, March 2nd, and then you also have the moon passing Uranus at the early degrees of Taurus. This happens on Friday. And after that, the moon starts to expand the amount of the zodiac that we have planets in. So instead of being all wedged together, the moon opens up that wedge a little bit. And over the course of the next few weeks, we'll be talking about how it looks back at that wedge and kind of shifts things around a little bit, and we start to get some perspective on things. Now, I think on Friday, as the moon goes over Uranus, we're in for some surprises. We're in for a few little shocks to the system type of thing. It's kind of a little bit like the chick breaking out of the egg. It's like pecking through there, and everything's been contained in this egg crucible. You get the idea, right? These are things that are new moon, egg, crucible. We're talking about things that are compacted but fertile. And so when the moon goes past Uranus, it's a bit of a shock to the system. It's the egg cracking, and the moon comes out of it. It'd be interesting to see what happens for all of us individually and collectively as that happens. And then the moon continues through Taurus and gets eventually into Gemini at the back half of the weekend and heads towards that first quarter moon. We really do have some chance to get a little bit of perspective on what's going on individually and collectively. So that's a big, big shift. In terms of more, down to earthy kind of stuff, the planet Venus is really active this week, and it starts on Tuesday. And the energy that is, it starts on Tuesday and really goes through the weekend as I shouldn't say just Venus, because it's actually Venus, which is the planet of love and relationship, what you want, what you desire, and the asteroid Juno, which is more specifically about partnership. And so they're both very active this week. So we have Venus opposing Juno on Tuesday. We have Venus squaring Pluto on Friday. And then we have Jupiter squaring Juno on Monday, March 2nd. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week. I'm already giving you the whole story for the first quarter moon and everything. So without implying that something or other is going to happen on any one particular day, let's just take this whole period of time from Tuesday through the weekend. But especially let's look at midweek as a time that might be significant. Should have talked about this in our relationship and astrology video. Margaret Gray and we did one on the new moon in Pisces. We should have brought this sort of stuff up. We talked about other things, which was a good video. You should go watch it. But I'm just saying. So what do we have with this? We have here a period of time when Venus in Aries is really very strongly, what do I want? Juno out in Libra, there's the dog again. Juno out in Libra is a little bit more formal in terms of relationship. And Pluto is in Capricorn, is kind of holding things down. And then eventually Jupiter in Capricorn will hold things down. I'm back after a short domestic disturbance involving the dog and cars going by on the street. He didn't like that. He didn't like cars to be going by on the street. That's somehow or another really not good for the dog. He's concerned that people might be on our street. I guess that's a good thing. What we have here at midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I would say you could stretch it out to the weekend. So within this whole period of time is a bit of tension between what you want and what the rules or determinants of relationship are. Essentially, it comes down to this, though. It's a tipping point for relationships that are at a place where they could tip either way, where they are at a point. I used to call them vulnerable points, but that makes it sound like something could go wrong. It's actually for relationships that are just at a tipping point, that can go one way or the other. Indeed, if your relationship is kind of in a bad place, this might be the time when you could say, okay, well, we're going to head in different directions. If your relationship is in a good place, this could be a time when you say, well, we'll take things to the next level, at whatever that means for you. I'm not getting in your business or anything like that, but it might be something you take it to the next level. And if the relationship is sort of just existing in the realm of possibility and potential, it might be a time when it gets moved into the realm of reality and actuality. So it depends where you are. Now, if your relationship is not in such a space, or you have no relationship to have in such a space, not such an issue. But if you're at a spot where things could go one way or the other, you can see them. You can see the real potential for things happening this week. Now, what I would want to remind you of, as I frequently do, is that you should not sit back and wait for something to happen that would be good or not so good. If you want things to tip in a particular direction, give a shove in that direction. Action does not always result in success. Inaction almost certainly results in failure. So if you want things to go in a particular direction with a relationship, this is an opportunity period. If you do nothing, well, that's a choice too. I mean, in a sense, that is an action, but it probably isn't the best action. So consider that. let's turn things around a little bit and say that it's also true that the period of time from Tuesday through, and I want to say particularly on Friday, as the moon goes over Uranus while Venus squares Pluto, could be a time when we see some rattling in the financial markets. Undoubtedly, they are pretty concerned about things like the coronavirus and how that's affecting productivity and so on, and the big web of things. And, all of that stuff matters. All of that stuff matters. However you feel about the systems that we have in place, when they stop working, we have consequences, and we have to deal with those consequences. You can have whatever opinions you want about them, but when things stop working, you have to find some other way of adapting. And so we start to discover actually how fragile or durable the systems are, how adaptable we are. And so I think Friday would be a time, perhaps Thursday, but I would think, Thursday, Friday is a time when we're going to discover what sort of durability we have personally and collectively. Of course, the decision time, the real pushing into action time, is going to be at the first quarter moon. But I got to save something for next week. So I'll see you then.